Welcome to the JET program virtual information session. My name is Jessica Livingston. I was a Hokkaido JET from 2003 to 2006, and I was a JET program coordinator from 2006 to 2013. And now I'm the executive director of US JET AA, which is the nonprofit organization serving our JET alumni. And our mission is really to strengthen US-Japan relations through providing opportunities and support to our very extensive JET alumni network, which is now over 40,000 here in the United States. And for all 40,000 of us, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that for all 40,000 of us, the JET experience was really life-altering. And so as alumni, we want to encourage others to take the plunge also. And that's part of the motivation and inspiration for the Alumni Association to host this virtual information session. I also want to recognize we have our sister organization, JET AA USA, and their support on this and partnership on this program. We have so many alumni in the United States that we're actually lucky enough to have two national organizations that support the JET program and our alumni here in the US. Valerie, who is going to be moderating tonight's discussion, is one of our elected country representatives through JET AA USA. I'd like to give you just kind of a brief idea of how everything is going to run tonight. So we will have, tonight's program is going to start off with a brief presentation from our very dedicated JET program coordinator from the Embassy of Japan in Washington, D.C., Grace. And then we're going to move into the panel talk with JET alumni, and that's going to be led by Valerie. And then after that, we're going to have breakout rooms. So you all have an opportunity to be in kind of smaller groups and hopefully have a higher chance of getting your questions answered. So each of us will be hosting a breakout room, and then there'll also be the lobby, and that's considered a breakout room as well. And then we're all going to come back to this main lobby and we'll close out the evening. So as I mentioned, we've got a large crowd tonight, so we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. We're going to use the chat function during the main presentation, so feel free to put your questions there. We'll also use the chat function in the breakout rooms. So if just know that that's going to be our main tool. If you cannot get your questions answered this evening, then I highly encourage you to attend our virtual office hours, which will begin next month. So these are going to be hosted online every Wednesday starting on October 8th. So it'll be October 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And these are unstructured 1-hour time blocks for the sole purpose of answering questions from prospective JETs and applicants. We usually have a JET program coordinator join us along with JET alumni to serve as resources for anyone showing up to those office hours. I would like to thank our JET program coordinator, Grace, who is joining us from the Embassy of Japan in Washington, D.C. for taking time to join us. And I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to her. Grace, I'm going to ask you to just start us off with a brief self-introduction and then have you share your insight on the application process and what makes a strong JET application. So, yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Hi, yoroshiku onegaishimasu. All right, absolutely. Hello. Thank you so much for that introduction, Jessica. Hello, everyone. My name is Grace. I'm one of the JET program coordinators here at the Embassy of Japan in the United States. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen so that I can jump into this presentation for you guys. But I was also a JET. I was an ALT in Nagasaki Prefecture from 2021 to 2023, and I have been a program coordinator at the Embassy of Japan since last October. So I'm relatively new, but I'm very happy to talk about the program with you guys today. All right, everyone can see my screen all right? Can see the presentation? Okay, wonderful. All right, let's get into it. All right, so what is the JET program? Some of you already may be somewhat familiar, but the JET program stands for the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program. It is one of the world's largest people-to-people exchange programs, started in 1987. It's been around for quite a while, and it's a chance to live and work in Japan for at least 1 year. It's a 12-month contract and it's a full-time job. So in that sense, it differs from, let's say, a study abroad experience or like a homestay type of experience. And it's one of its main goals is to promote international exchange between Japan and other countries at the grassroots level, right? People-to-people exchange. There are two main positions on the JET program, the ALT position and the CIR position. ALT stands for Assistant Language Teacher, and CIR stands for Coordinator of International Relations. You'll see that many of the people on the call here were former ALTs, and I will get into why that is. Oh, well, first I can talk very briefly about the contract. So when you are on the JET program, it is a 1-year contract, 12-year contract period, and you are employed by your contracting organization or CO, right? So your employer isn't the JET program, or it's your actual contracting organization, which might be a school board, or a board of education, or an actual school itself. And you can actually recontract up to 5 years total. So you can actually have, 1-year jets and then go home, or if you want to, you can potentially go up to 3 or even 5 years. All right, so actually I'll actually go back and talk a little bit more about these ALT and CIR positions. So for an ALT, what you're doing is that you are working in classrooms, you're working in schools, you're working as an English language teacher. And you are be placed in a elementary school, middle school, or high school somewhere in Japan. And then what you do as a coordinator of international relations is that you actually are working, doing a wide variety of things. It could be translation and interpretation. It could be helping with tourism at your local tourism board. And one main thing that I want to tell you about the CIR role is that you need a high level of Japanese language ability. And so about 10% of the people on the JET program are CIRs and 90% are ALTs. So that's why when you hear about the JET program, a lot of the time the alumni and who you hear from are ALTs, including myself. All right. So let's talk a bit about placement information. So where do you go on the JET program? You go to Japan, of course, but where in Japan do you go? Do you get to choose where you go? So most jets are actually placed in small cities or towns. In your application, you can indicate your preferences. You can indicate if you have a urban placement preference or a rural placement preference. Um, and you can also request up to 3 locations in your application. So you can indicate if you want to go to a particular prefecture, particular city, and you can indicate why you would like to go there. However, one big caveat we would like to note is that placement requests are not guaranteed. So please do your research on different places in Japan. You can indicate where you'd like to go and why, but unless you have particular, for example, medical considerations or you have a spouse who already lives in Japan, it will be considered, but it won't necessarily be guaranteed. So we do have over 5,900 JET participants living and working in Japan right now. So what do you need what is the eligibility criteria to be on the JET program and to be eligible to apply, right? So first and foremost, for JET USA specifically, you need to hold US citizenship. The reason for that is because it's tied to the Japanese work visa process. Our embassy can only issue to US visas, right? If you have a US passport, you can apply through embassy, and it's tied to that whole visa process. And the same for the bachelor's degree requirement. So you need to hold a bachelor's degree by June of 2026. So those who are currently in their last year of obtaining their degree, if you're in the last year of college, a senior, then you can apply for the JET program in this upcoming fall session or fall semester or in this current fall. And then you can go to Japan right after you finish your degree. And then finally, well, you also have to not have participated on JET since 2023. So you need to, if you went on the JET program, you finished in 2023, you could apply for this upcoming cycle. You also need excellent written and verbal English skills. So many of the JETs are ALTs, and you will be teaching English. That's why in order to be a successful English teacher, naturally, you will need excellent written and verbal English skills. For CIRs, as I mentioned previously, you must have strong Japanese skills because you will be working in a Japanese office setting, likely, working with Japanese people who may not be able to speak English. And so you need to be able to have fairly high level or even business level Japanese. I'd like to go over a few common misconceptions about the JET program. One is that there is an age limit to apply for the program. We hear this one a lot. But actually, there is no age limit for applicants. We have jets, in their 50s and their 60s going over and participating on the jet program. People with families, people with children, people bring their spouse. It's definitely it happens all the time. And so we definitely like to encourage a wide range of applicants to apply. You do not need a degree in teaching English or Japanese. Your degree can be in anything at all. One of my co-coordinators here at the office has a degree in archaeology. That was her background. So all academic backgrounds are 100% welcome. You do not need a specific major or degree. However, those things can strengthen your application, right? If you have shown a background in teaching English or Japanese, then that can definitely strengthen your application, and that's something we do look for. So placement preferences can impact your chances is another misconception. So people say like, oh, I'm going to apply, I'm going to indicate my placement preferences somewhere that's more rural, that like somewhere that a lot of people haven't applied to, so that way I'll be able to get in. Or, they'll say like, oh, I have no preferences, and then they'll think that maybe they'll be able to get placed, they'll get more likely to be accepted onto the program. But that is false. The JET program reviews placement preferences after candidates are accepted. So preferences do not influence your chances of getting into the program. So sincerely, just indicate wherever you would like to go. All right, what makes a JET? What makes a strong candidate for the JET program? So I would say adaptability, patience, flexibility, all of these sort of characteristics that you can see up here. Positive attitude, a sense of humor. You're going to get a lot of different unique situations thrown at you living your life in Japan. And so we do value a lot of these different things, right? Being a creative individual, especially if you are an ALT, you'll be working in the classroom, working with students and children. So being creative, taking the initiative, and having a passion for education and cross-cultural exchange. Of course, that is the main thing that our program strives to do, and a genuine interest in Japan and Japanese culture, right? Not somebody who wants to be there just as an interest in to go as a tourist, but to genuinely live and work there and contribute to your community. So what JET looks for, continuing from the previous slide, we recruit from a variety of cultural, professional, and academic backgrounds. So as I mentioned, having teaching or tutoring experience can definitely strengthen your application. Being able to indicate on your application that you have involvement in Japanese or international cultural activities, or if you have just generally work or volunteer experience as well. So anything that you have really been involved in with like extracurriculars and things like that is definitely something that you can and talk about, and there'll be spaces to put that in your application. And personality and attitude are definitely key, right? We want to see your personality shine through your application. So every opportunity there is to do so, such as your essay, please just show who you are and what your passions are. Here are some helpful application tips for everyone. First and foremost, please read instructions carefully. It's a bit of a long application online, and so we really sincerely hope that you read every bit because we do not want you to not move on to the next stage because you simply missed a crucial, important instruction. Right, please ensure that all of your scans of your documents that you submit are clear and legible. You'll be asked to submit things like your transcript, your passport, and we do want those scans to be clear and legible so we can see them. Not photos of them, but scans, please. Answer all questions as directed. List all experiences on your application form, everything that you can, think that might be relevant to the question, please put on. And the most important part of the application, the essay, where you can really shine and really show who you are and what your interest in Japan and the JET program is and why you're choosing the JET program. Please proofread your entire application. You would be surprised at how many random mistakes that we see sometimes, considering it is, in some ways, for many people, an application to be an English teacher. All right, please submit the application well before the deadline. This year, we expect that it might be a slightly smaller application window than usual, and we also definitely don't want you to be rushing right at the last minute. to submit everything. It'll be stressful for you, it'll be stressful for us. So if you submit it earlier before the deadline, then what our office can do is that we can sometimes look at your application. If there's something wrong, then we can reach out to you and say, hey, do you mind fixing this and that? And then you will be able to fix it in time for the application submission deadline. So definitely 100% recommend getting it done earlier because we always run into a situation where we have a whole bunch of people submitting at 11:59. They try to click submit, and then it just doesn't happen for whatever reason, and then we get panicked phone calls, and we don't want that to happen. And then upload all supplementary documents that are requested as well. So please don't remember or don't forget your required documents. If you do not submit everything that you need to submit, your application unfortunately cannot be reviewed. All right. The JET application will open fall 2025 at jetapplication.com. So if you'd like to get an email alert when the 2026 JET program application goes live, please you can go to jetapplication.com and then you can sign up to receive that email. More specifically, we are looking at ideally late September, but potentially early October. So that is when we'll be opening the application. If you have any questions about JET, in addition to the office hours that Jessica mentioned, you can check out our website and you can also contact our office if need be. You can also look at our social media. We will be making announcements when the application goes live. We have Instagram, X, and Facebook. If you want to hear more from alumni and coordinators, you can also see our fall events that happen across the United States at jetprogramusa.org/events. If you want, you can scan this QR code and you can see some of this information. All right, I believe that is time for me. Thank you so much for listening to my whole presentation. I really appreciate it and I appreciate your time. And so I will stop sharing now. All right.
Grace,
Thank you so much, everyone.
Grace, I'm going to keep you on for a minute. I had a question about
Yes.
the SEA position. And
Yes.
so I wanted to throw that out to you because you went over the ALT and CIR, but the SEA is like everyone knows it exists if you've done your research, but there's not a lot of
Yes.
information out there on it. So could you touch on that real quick and explain like how those positions get filled and how many there are in a year and just kind of some context?
Absolutely. So the SEA position, the rare SEA position, that's a sports exchange advisor. And the application sort of differs, and the application cycle differs from the other two in that some years, we actually don't get an SEA request from Japan. So what happens is that if there is a request for a particular sports exchange advisor from a potential contracting organization in Japan, let's say they're looking for somebody who has volleyball coaching experience or baseball coaching experience. They want to kind of bring somebody from the United States or whichever other country that they're pulling this jet from to be able to act as a sports exchange advisor for students. And so sometimes we will get a request for an American sports exchange advisor through the JET program. So this past cycle, we actually did not receive any requests. The previous cycle, we only received about two. So our office hears about that in around February or so, and then we'll make that call public. So that once we do receive that information, we will be posting about it on our social media. We'll be putting that information out there. I can't say now if we will receive any requests this year, but if we do, we will be sure to make that information known, but I cannot guarantee that we will receive any sports exchange advisor requests from Japan this year.
Okay, great. Thanks for clearing that up. And I know there's like a ton of questions in the chat, and I think many of us have been typing as fast as our little fingers can type. But I know that we probably won't be able to answer all of them. So again, I just want to encourage folks to show up to those office hours where we have a little bit more, one-on-one time available. Grace, thanks so much for that speedy presentation. I know it's a lot to cover in a short period of time. So I wanted to turn it over to Valerie and invite her to come on the screen with me. And Valerie has been a leader in the JET alumni community for many, many years alongside me. And she's one of the elected country representatives for JET AAUSA. And she is going to be the lovely host of our JET alumni panel. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Valerie, to introduce yourself and the panelists. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jessica. So my name is Valerie Stewart, and I was an ALT in Saga Prefecture, 1999 to 2002. So it's been a while since I was on JET, but I still remained connected through the JET Alumni Association. I was in a rural part of Saga, and I was primarily in junior high schools and elementary schools as an ALT. So I'll be your moderator for this session. And so we have our panelists here. And so, panelists, in 1 to 2 minutes, could you introduce yourselves, tell everyone where you were on the JET program, if you were in a rural or suburban or urban area, what grade level you taught, and just a little bit about yourself, something that you were involved in the community, and what are you doing now? So, we'll start with Lindsay.
Well, thank you, Valerie. Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Jenkins, and I was an elementary school ALT in Hyogo Prefecture from 2018 to 2023. So I am what we call in the community the unicorn of all 5 years. During the pandemic, I was mostly in Japan teaching. Um, I taught at a total of 6 elementary schools throughout my duration of 5 years on the program. And it was a great time. And I genuinely enjoyed my time there. So I lived in a specific area called Awaji Island within Hyogo Prefecture. It's a very rural area. There are no trains. There was one bus, and I drove everywhere. I had to learn how to drive in Japan, which we can talk about that in the breakout room if you do have questions about travel in Japan and about cars, because that was a doozy. But a my community within Japan, I really got invested in puppet theater, and I'm more than happy to talk about that later as well. And I know Grace touched on it earlier within the presentation that you can come from a different background with a different major. I majored in theater, and here we are many years later. Um, and now, what I do, I currently reside in Atlanta, Georgia, and I also am the vice president of the JET Alumni Association of the Southeast. So, for all my Southeast people, those that are interested, feel free to contact me as well. And my current occupation is I work at the Georgia Institute of Technology, also it's called Georgia Tech, in the Office of International Education, and it is all thanks to Japan that I have, pursued this career trajectory. So it's really nice to meet you guys. I'm really excited to get into this, but yeah, I'm excited to meet you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Kai, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Kai. I was a jet in both Kyoto and Niigata prefectures from 2010 to 2015. I was a CIO, Coordinator for International Relations, so happy to talk about that experience. Didn't teach kids, but I did a lot of different work from translating, translating, interpreting, creating newsletters, doing some school visits where I got to introduce kids to things like what a turkey looks like and different American games and stuff. But yeah, if you're interested in being a CIR, I'm happy to answer those questions. Um, I guess the community activity I was involved in, I was really involved in my local JET community. So we had like a English language musical in Niigata that I helped out with and helped promote. It was a charity thing, so we do that all around the prefecture. And think what I do now is the last one, right? I am currently a stay-at-home dad. So I was a program coordinator in San Francisco for 10 years, finished up earlier this year, and now I am taking care of a baby. So yeah, happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Kelsey?
Hi everybody, aloha. My name is Kelsey. I was a ALT, assistant language teacher, as well as a prefectural advisor in Fukuoka Prefecture down south in Japan. It's actually very close to where Valerie was as well. Um, I was an ALT for 2 years from 2016 to 2018, and then from 2018 to 2020, I was a prefectural advisor. So kind of the one on the opposite side of a PC program coordinator here in America, somebody adjusting and helping you folks adjust once you arrive in Japan in your home prefecture. Um, I worked out of the Fukuoka Education Office when I was an ALT, which basically means that I was kind of almost like a dispatch ALT. I had about 18 schools when I was a jet, and everyone kind of jumps at that when they hear it. I taught likely over 25,000 students when I was an ALT, which can be very daunting, but it was very, very fun. And it really made me comfortable in my own home prefecture. I taught anywhere from grade, I guess, US grade 1, all the way up to grade 9, American or like third year of junior high school in Japan, and anywhere between like ages 6 through 15. I'm also now the president of the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program, I guess, kind of alumni association here in Hawaii. So I help to plan events post-JET for all of our alumni here in Hawaii, as well as, trying to help organize events across the country, things like our online Halloween costume contest, things like that, just to keep all of the Jets across the nation kind of connected. My current occupation is I am a registrar at a K through 12 private school in Hawaii. Jet really taught me that I like to work in the office at schools. And I really wanted to stay close to the education sector. And this was a really great way for me to do that. So yeah, it's really nice to meet everybody, and I look forward to hearing your questions.
Okay, thank you. And Grace, was there anything else that you wanted to share about your JET experience?
I will just say that during my time in Nagasaki Prefecture, I was a prefectural ALT, so I worked at a high school. And then once a week, I also went to a special education school, and I had a really wonderful experience teaching there. And I lived in a very small town and had a great time just connecting with my community as well as the ALT community specifically. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in following questions or the breakout room if you guys have any questions about it.
Thank you. So next question. So Kai, why did you decide to apply for the JET program and what influenced your decision?
Yeah, so for me, I'd always been interested in Japan. I grew up on anime, grew up doing martial arts, studied abroad in Japan, loved it, wanted to go back, and I had worked really hard to improve my Japanese to the point where I felt I could use it professionally. And I think one of the really unique things about the JET program is there are a number of avenues to go and teach English in Japan. JET is my personal favorite, the one I always recommend people look at, but there are other options. For folks who want to use Japanese professionally to translate, to interpret, to do a number of different jobs, there's not as many. And the CIR position with JET was really the main one out there. So I found for me, it was the best option to kind of keep using my Japanese, developing my Japanese professionally, getting skills in an area I was interested in. Really, that was going to be through the JET program. I certainly looked at other programs, but JET had the best salary, had the best benefits, has the best community, and I think has the best connection to the community. So that's what pushed me into it. And again, the uniqueness of, I think, the CIR position is something that's really, really stark compared to a lot of other programs.
Thank you. So Kelsey, why did you apply for the JET program? You're muted.
Hi, everybody. So for me, when I applied for JET, when I was in college, I had studied about Japanese American history, and it really made me interested in learning more about my background. I'm Japanese American myself, so I had a longing to find out more about Japan, a little more about my family. My family is actually from Hiroshima, in the middle of Japan, but I got placed in Fukuoka, which I found out later that I do actually have family roots in Fukuoka too. Um, and another reason also is just that I didn't get to do something like study abroad when I was in college. So I thought that this would be a really great opportunity for me to explore a new country, learn more about a new country, and also work in a new country. Um, and I really enjoyed it. Um, yeah, I had a really big want to learn another language as well. So I really got to improve my Japanese when I was on JET. And also even took the Japanese language certification test, the JLPT as well. Yeah.
And Lindsay, what about you? Why did you apply the JET program?
Yeah, so originally I'd actually never heard anything about JET until I studied. I got interested in learning Japanese within college in my university years, my undergrad years. And similar to Kelsey, I also didn't do a study abroad experience, but I was really drawn to Japan, similar with Kai, where it was anime, and also I enjoy the sound and I like the theatrics specifically for Japanese. And my Japanese teacher at the time presented the JET program as an option for me because she thought I'd be a good fit for it. I had a lot of doubts in the beginning because I was like, my degree isn't in teaching, it's not in English. How am I gonna do this? But it turned out, it went really well, and I just decided to pack my bags and go do something really different, and it was the best time of my life. So, and it's really changed everything I do now, and everything I plan to do in the future is all Japanese and Japan oriented. So that's how it kind of got influenced into the JET program.
Well, thank you. So I have a different question. So Grace, what was a typical day like for you as an ALT on the JET program?
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned earlier, I taught at one high school and one special education school once a week. And in terms of the schedule, I was expected to be at school around 8, and then I finished my workday around 3:45. And I think I was probably on the like less busy end of ALTs when I was at my high school. When I was at my special education school, I did classes literally all day. However, at my normal school that I was at for days a week, I'm going to say that I usually had maybe 2 to 3, sometimes 4 classes in one day. And the school day is split into class periods, kind of similar that in a similar way to an American school. And so I would be teaching maybe 3-ish classes every day, and then some days it'd be 2, some days it'd be 4. Yeah, you'd have, I got a lunch break where I got to, as a high school teacher, I didn't have to eat with the students and didn't have the kyushoku, if you're familiar with that. I bring my own lunch from home and I ate. And then once 3:45 hit, most of the teachers are still going to be working, but I walked home. That was my basic day at my job.
So that's a high school, but Lindsay, how was it in elementary school?
Whew. How is it in elementary school? Let me tell you, it's nothing like high school. So elementary school, okay, my personality really matches the level of elementary school, so that's probably why they put me in, 6. So, my day started similar to Grace, where I was there at 8 a.m. and I was there until 3:45. Um, I did eat with my students, which was a great time. If I didn't like something in my lunch, we'd trade when the teacher wasn't looking. That was a fun little bond. But that kind of had to stop during the pandemic, obviously, for reasons. But once that kind of towards the end of the pandemic, we were able to kind of eat together again. But in elementary school, you're required to do a lot more with the students because they are not really introduced to English outside of classes. So I would play with them. They would use me as a jungle gym. Of course, if you're not comfortable with that, you can express that. And I would really recommend during the cleaning time, during like lunch, the students clean the school and like clean up their classroom. I would help them clean. And that's how we would talk and exchange. And I taught from first grade to sixth grade. I had about there's about 6 class periods, I believe, in elementary school total. And I would either go, it would really depends on the school. I would teach 4 some days, or I would teach all day from first period to sixth period. And then I would unlike high school, elementary school does not have club activities outside of school. It's not like a mandatory thing. So the students, you'd be like, okay, bye. And like, they would go home and be on their merry way. But it was jam-packed. Again, this is just my experience. It might be very different from everyone else's, but uh, elementary school is packed with goodness every day, and every day looks very different.
Hi, so what was a day like as a CIR or some of the days like?
Some of the days, yeah. So I think one of the big differences with ALT and CIR work is that as an ALT, whether it's elementary school, junior high school, senior high school, you're going to be teaching. You're going to be in the classroom. You're going to be creating lessons and stuff. With the CIRs I knew and the work I did, there's a huge variation. So I was initially in a small town in Kyoto Prefecture, where I did a lot of school visits. I did a lot of community interpretation. I did a lot of lectures to the community. I did some joint events with our surrounding towns and stuff. And then when I moved to a big prefecture, which was the Niigata prefectural office, that was much more every day was translation, it was reports, it was some really intense interpreting, very few school visits. So a very different kind of work environment. In both cases, I typically know kind of what my projects were for the week. I'd would have a nice standard 9 to 5, so I'd start 9 a.m., finish 5 p.m. Sometimes I'd have evening events like banquets and stuff where I had to go interpret. But usually I'd, again, know what the projects are. If I'm working on a translation project, I'd take care of that in the morning, maybe answer some calls throughout the day. If I had a school visit, maybe do that in the afternoon. But again, one thing about CIR work is we can tell you kind of what all you could do, but until you go there, it's kind of hard to know what the actual main thrust of your job is going to be. But I did like that, every day was pretty much a 9 to 5, or it was like planned out very far in advance. So I know I have a banquet this day, I have a weekend event this day. If I needed to take time off, I would say it was also really nice as a CIR is that I found the vacation very flexible to take. So it was very easy for me to be like, I'm going home an hour early today. I'm going home. I'm going to take off the afternoon today, which was, again, a really good way to keep that kind of life balance going.
I love hearing about everyone's days to see what they were doing. Kelsey, what type of valuable support groups and communities did you tap into while living in Japan?
For me, one of the biggest groups that I often tapped into, hung out with, was other ALTs. I was really lucky to be living in what's known as like a prefectural gyoshokuin jutaku, which is like a teacher's prefectural housing. And in that building, or two sets of buildings, there are about 15 to 20 ALTs and CIRs living in my building. So I don't think that was quite the usual experience for Jets, especially those who are placed more rural. But I did get very close with my cohort. And even till this day, I see and talk to them a lot. Um, so that's one way that I got very involved with my community, as well as through what's kind of known as AJET, which is the Association of Jets in Japan. And you'll have your own home AJET community in your prefecture. So for my prefecture, we planned things like, yearly annual welcome parties for the new Jets. We planned like sumo tournament, parties, things like that to go and see it together. Just casual, karaoke hangouts, going to izakaya or something like that together. So in that way, I really got to know more, not only just about Japan, but I got to learn a lot about different countries. And I'm really appreciative of that. Yeah.
It's great. So I love Dayjet too. That was one of my big support systems. Grace, what about you? What support groups did you utilize on the JET program?
So I will say this is not particularly unique. However, as I mentioned, I was in a pretty rural area, and just the other ALTs that were in my area, Nagasaki, in my gun, as they call it, were just wonderful. I got incredibly close to them, and I would hang out with them all the time. We would have kind of like American holiday parties. We would do your Thanksgiving and your Christmas because we couldn't really go home to celebrate, especially post COVID, which is when I was there. And yeah, I think I also utilized occasionally some of like the mental health resources that were available through JET. You can get like free counseling services as well and a few free sessions. And so I've utilized that. And I also was a part of my special education school's music club. And so I would join that after class, and that led to this whole really cool situation where I got to get to know the leader of it, and then he introduced me to like a lot of the community, and that worked out really nicely.
Lindsay, what about you? What were some of your support groups on JET?
Yeah, so some of my support groups, I had the privilege of teaching a group of elderly women, older women, and they were very kind, and we'd actually go on trips together throughout Japan. So we went to Kyoto, we went to Kinosaki, very onsen oriented, but those women, they were like very, very kind, and they were like my seven grandmothers that really showed me Japan in ways that I don't think I would have known if I'd gone by myself. And I also got really into I communicated with the groups, specific groups within Japan. Like I was a part of the Black Women in Japan group. And I met a lot of other Jets as well as just other um, nationalities living within Japan, and we've gotten really close. And um, I've had the privilege of staying friends with them throughout these years, and like we still stay in contact. And they're like, "Hey, I'm in Canada now. If you ever want to come to Canada, just say the word." So it's like really who you meet and like the connections you meet are very important. But again, similar to everyone else, my fellow ALTs on the island, really helpful. Like one was either downstairs or like down the street, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm craving pizza," and those support groups you need that you just go ahead and hang out for the day or go to the beach or go for a walk or things like that. But around those areas, those were some of my support groups.
And Kai, what about you? Who did you lean on, or what support groups did you utilize?
Good question. I mean, like a lot of folks have already said, I was pretty connected to my Jet community. So I really enjoyed, one of the things they don't tell you is, just how international that Jet community is. And yeah, you'll meet people from everywhere. And it was a really fun way to get international experience outside of even just Japan. My best friends on the program were Australian, or they were Irish, or they were South Korean, um, which I really loved as like an unexpected benefit. Outside of that, I was really close actually with a bunch of old guys from my gym. Um, so I'd go to the gym, I did some powerlifting competitions in Japan. And once we kind of broached the gap of gym awkwardness and I'm not Japanese awkwardness, I got to go out to dinners with them. I got to talk with them about training. It was fun just to see people who, I think maybe wouldn't have interacted with someone from a different country otherwise. It was really fun to just connect with those guys and kind of learn, talking lifting essentially in Japanese. And one thing I always like to see is, people kind of getting into hobbies and subcultures maybe that they didn't expect to get into in Japan. And certainly going to Japanese powerlifting meets was not something I expected to do, but I really enjoyed that.
Great, thank you. So last question, what advice would you give to someone applying for the JET program? So Lindsay?
Do it. I'm kidding. Yeah, do it. But there's more to that. Um, if you're, there is like a lot of people, I feel like I had a lot of doubts going into it, like I don't have a teaching degree, or I don't know if I can stay the full year. And then when I went to Japan, there was just a lot of uncertainties. There was a lot of unknowns. There's so many things I didn't know. My Japanese was like mid-level, but it wasn't, you learn very quickly. Um, but I just say, really just try everything. Really just do it scared, because you'll never know the experiences that will be brought to you. And you'll never know who you'll meet. So really be open to all those new experiences and even the scary experiences. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Like if you need help, please ask for it. There are so many resources that the JET program provides, as well as the locals within your area in Japan. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know what this says and how to pay this bill. They're really there to help. So all you really have to do is ask, and just, really enjoy your time there and take it all in. But I think that's some of my advice that I would give.
I agree. Kelsey, what about you? Any advice?
Yeah, for me, like Lindsay mentioned, just do it. One of the things that I like to say is that even if, teaching is not what you want to do in the long run, if like I guess kind of doing those kinds of things, even if like cross-cultural communication, things like that, are not what you want to do, JET is a really great way for you to build a lot of soft skills, ways for you to be looked at by those who are looking to hire. So I wrote down a list of different soft skills that I learned while I was on JET, and there were things like adaptability, that Grace had mentioned in her presentation as well. Um, Patience is a big one. You really learn to work around those who you're working with while you're on JET, and how you can make it a good way, I guess, how to make it acceptable for you to both work together. Team teaching, it's not just about teaching, it's about learning how to work with someone, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses and working around those things, and building together. Being flexible is a huge one, especially, if you're like me and you have 18 schools. It really helps you to learn about time management as well. So don't be afraid to do it. please do it. It's a great program. And, like I said, it builds soft skills, but also, it just builds so many great relationships within Japan and after JET.
Thank you. Kai?
Yeah, I think I'll do 2 points. I guess for you all who are looking to apply, I've read a lot of applications over the years. I've seen a lot of people applying. I've been through hundreds of interviews at this point. I think my biggest takeaway for folks who are in the application phase is try to make your application and your interview, try to sell yourself, try to make yourself who you are as a person stand out. I think someone had asked in the chat and Grace had answered really well. But for me personally, the biggest issue I'd see with applications is they're very general. People say, I want to go to Japan and teach and engage in exchange, which is great. That's the point of the JET program, but it doesn't tell us anything about you. Share who you are as a person, share your motivation, share what you want to do in Japan, share, your goals for your time in the program. Getting a sense of who you are as a person is really important in the application phase, where if you're reading dozens of these, they're going to kind of meld together at some point. So anytime I could pick like, oh, this person has a really good story, this person has a really good motivation, those were always the ones that stood out to me. Then for when those of you who are successful when you're going to Japan, don't let your expectations kind of make your experience or shape your experience. This is true. I had studied abroad in Japan. I thought I was really ready for things. When I went, I kept trying to get connected to that study abroad group at first. I kept trying to go back to Tokyo, stay connected to that community instead of focusing on my community. And I think for my first few months, that really impacted me, where I could have made some bigger strides in connecting to the new town I was in, as opposed to trying to get back, that experience that I'd been with before. And I hear this a lot about people in many different cases of you expect Japan to be one way, and people struggle when it doesn't quite match those ideas. So I think certainly kind of be ready to throw away your expectations and really make the most of wherever you get placed. Yeah.
Thank you. And Grace?
Yeah, I think this has all been really wonderful advice. I will say, based on what I saw during my time as an ALT, was that even if you have been to Japan before, even if you've traveled to Japan before, even if you have spent a month or two, even if you have studied abroad for 6 months or even a whole year in Japan before, be prepared for culture shock, because when it comes to culture shock, it's a matter of when you will experience, not if you will experience it. Everyone will experience it to some degree. So be prepared to experience it and have a plan ahead of time on how you will navigate it. Think about what your, I guess, your coping mechanisms would be, what your support system would be, what your plan is. Will you, maybe potentially reach out to your family and have a call with them? Will you try to connect and strengthen deeper your relationships with your other ALTs? Will you read a good book and have some tea, right? What is it for you that will help you navigate your culture shock? Because even if you have this sense of like, oh, I mean, I've lived in Japan before for months, then you'll still be in a completely different type of area, almost certainly, in a different role, right? Not a student, but as like somebody who's working every single day in a Japanese office. It's a completely different type of experience. So please prepare yourself for culture shock, because it will occur.
So I want to thank everyone for your help. I mean, your answers and everything that you've contributed to on this panel. I know that you've given a lot of great advice, and this is not over. So if you want to continue the conversation, we will all be in breakout rooms. And if you can move from breakout room to whichever one, but again, I thank you for this panel part, and good luck to everyone on their applications. So Jessica or Julia?
Yeah, I'll hop in. Thanks so much. I love hearing all of the stories. I think, Jets can say that, we really can relate to fellow Jets experiences, because in one sense, we've all kind of experienced the same thing, but everybody also has their own personal experience while they're on the Jet program that really has to do with, the community that they were a part of. And so that's really what makes it so memorable and so special to each of us.